Adolf Hitler remains one of the most recognizable and controversial figures in history. His name evokes images of unspeakable horrors and unimaginable suffering, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred and ambition. This essay delves into Hitler's life, tracing his journey from an unremarkable childhood to his infamous role as the architect of the Holocaust and the mastermind behind World War II. By examining his formative years, ideologies, rise to power, and ultimate downfall, we aim to understand the forces that shaped this dictator and the lessons learned from his reign of terror. Hitler's life, though marked by brutality and cruelty, offers a chilling glimpse into the human capacity for both good and evil. His story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of vigilance against the seductive allure of extremist ideologies and the fragility of peace in the face of unchecked aggression. It is a story that demands our attention not to glorify the past but to learn from its darkest chapters and strive to prevent their repetition in the future. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889 in Braunau am Inn, a small Austrian town near the German border. This quaint town, with its cobblestone streets and picturesque landscapes, seemed an unlikely birthplace for one of history's most infamous figures. His childhood was marked by both familial instability and a growing sense of German nationalism. The early 1900s were a time of significant political and social change in Europe, and young Adolf was not immune to these influences. His father, Alois Hitler, was a strict and authoritarian customs official, while his mother, Clara, was a doting parent who showered affection on her son. Alois's demanding nature contrasted sharply with Clara's nurturing demeanor, creating a household of conflicting dynamics. Hitler's relationship with his father was strained, characterized by frequent clashes and a lack of emotional connection. Alois's rigid expectations and harsh discipline often left young Adolf feeling isolated and misunderstood. Alois's harsh discipline and domineering personality left a lasting impact on the young Hitler, fostering resentment and a desire for control. These early experiences with authority would later shape his own authoritarian tendencies. In contrast, his close bond with his mother provided a sense of comfort and security. Clara's unwavering support and affection were a refuge from the turmoil of his relationship with his father. Hitler's academic performance was unremarkable, marked by a lack of interest in most subjects except for history and German language. His teachers noted his lack of discipline and focus, but also his keen interest in the stories of Germanic heroes and national pride. He displayed a talent for drawing and painting, harboring dreams of becoming an artist. His sketchbooks were filled with detailed drawings, showcasing a natural ability that he hoped to develop further. However, his aspirations were met with resistance from his father, who envisioned a more practical career path for his son. Alois believed that a career in the civil service would provide stability and respectability, dismissing Adolf's artistic ambitions as frivolous. The clash between Hitler's artistic ambitions and his father's expectations created further tension within the family. These disagreements were not just about career choices but also about deeper issues of identity and self-worth. Hitler's inability to pursue his passion contributed to a growing sense of frustration and resentment, further fueling his rebellious streak and shaping his worldview. This period of his life was marked by a deepening discontent that would later manifest in his radical ideologies and actions. The seeds of discontent sown in his early years would grow into a dark and destructive force, altering the course of history forever. In 1907, following the death of his father and a failed attempt to gain admission to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, Hitler moved to Vienna, the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The city, known for its cultural vibrancy and artistic heritage, seemed like the perfect place for a young aspiring artist to make his mark. He hoped to find success as an artist in the vibrant metropolis, but his dreams were quickly dashed. The city's art scene was competitive, and Hitler found it difficult to stand out among the many talented artists. He faced rejection from the academy again, citing his unsuitability for painting. This second rejection was a significant blow to his self-esteem and aspirations. Vienna, once a symbol of hope for the young Hitler, became a crucible of hardship and disillusionment. The city's grandeur and promise now seemed like a cruel joke to him. He struggled to make ends meet, drifting from one menial job to another, and eventually ending up in a homeless shelter. The harsh reality of his situation was a far cry from the artistic success he had envisioned. This period of poverty and social isolation had a profound impact on Hitler's worldview. The daily struggle for survival hardened him, and the constant rejection and failure deepened his sense of resentment. During his time in Vienna, Hitler became increasingly exposed to the city's undercurrents of anti-Semitism, racism, and German nationalism. These toxic ideologies were pervasive in the city's political and social discourse. He gravitated towards these extremist ideologies, finding solace and a sense of belonging among those who shared his growing resentment towards immigrants, Jews, and the established order. The camaraderie he found in these groups provided a stark contrast to the isolation he felt in his personal life. The seeds of Hitler's hatred and prejudice were sown in the fertile ground of Vienna's social and political turmoil. The city's unrest and the widespread acceptance of extremist views provided a breeding ground for his radicalization. His experiences of poverty, rejection, and exposure to extremist ideologies fueled his anger and shaped his warped worldview, setting the stage for his transformation from a frustrated artist into a fanatical ideologue. The years of struggle and resentment in Vienna were pivotal in molding the man who would later lead one of the darkest chapters in human history. As he wandered the streets of Vienna, the city's beauty and culture seemed to mock his failures. Each grand building and artistic masterpiece was a reminder of what he could not achieve. This constant reminder of his inadequacies only deepened his bitterness. The art community that he once longed to be a part of now seemed like an exclusive club that he could never join. His repeated rejections from the academy left him feeling like an outsider, fueling his growing animosity towards those he perceived as successful. The political climate of Vienna at the time was charged with tension and division. Nationalist and anti-Semitic sentiments were on the rise, and Hitler found himself increasingly drawn to these ideologies. They provided a convenient scapegoat for his failures and a sense of purpose that he had been lacking. The extremist groups he joined offered him a sense of belonging and validation. They echoed his frustrations and provided a narrative that placed the blame for his struggles on external forces. This narrative was intoxicating for a young man desperate for meaning and direction. The years in Vienna were a crucible that forged Hitler's radical beliefs. The combination of personal failure, social isolation, and exposure to extremist ideologies created a perfect storm that would eventually lead to his rise as a dangerous and influential figure. The city that once represented hope and opportunity had become the breeding ground for his darkest ambitions. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 marked a turning point in Hitler's life. The world was plunged into chaos, and the young Adolf Hitler saw this as a moment of destiny. Eager to prove his worth and escape the drudgery of his existence, he volunteered for the German army, seeing the war as an opportunity for personal redemption and national glory. For Hitler, the war was not just a conflict, it was a chance to be part of something greater than himself, to rise above his humble beginnings and make a name for himself. He served with distinction on the Western Front, earning the Iron Cross for bravery. This recognition was a significant boost to his self-esteem and reinforced his belief in his own destiny. The camaraderie and shared purpose he found in the army gave him a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. Despite his initial enthusiasm, the horrors of trench warfare left an indelible mark on Hitler. The relentless bombardments, the mud, the rats, and the constant threat of death were a far cry from the glory he had imagined. The brutal reality of war was a stark contrast to the romanticized vision he had held. He witnessed firsthand the brutality of combat, the loss of comrades, and the devastating consequences of modern warfare. The sight of fallen soldiers, the smell of death, and the sounds of agony were seared into his memory. These experiences hardened him, making him more determined and ruthless. These experiences intensified his sense of German nationalism and fueled his hatred for those he perceived as enemies of Germany. The war became a crucible in which his extreme views were forged. He began to see himself as a savior of the German people, destined to lead them to greatness. In 1918, while recovering from a mustard gas attack that temporarily blinded him, Hitler learned of Germany's defeat. The news was a devastating blow, not just to his physical health but to his psyche. The sense of betrayal and humiliation he felt was overwhelming. The news came as a crushing blow, shattering his belief in German invincibility and fueling his resentment towards the politicians and diplomats he blamed for the country's humiliation. He saw the defeat as a personal affront and a national tragedy. This sense of betrayal would become a central theme in his future rhetoric. The defeat of Germany in World War I had a profound and lasting impact on Hitler's worldview. it was a turning point that would shape his ideology and his future actions. The sense of loss and betrayal he felt was shared by many Germans, creating a fertile ground for his extremist ideas. It solidified his belief in the stab-in-the-back myth, the notion that Germany had been betrayed by internal enemies, particularly Jews and socialists. This conspiracy theory provided a convenient scapegoat for the nation's problems, and a rallying cry for those who felt similarly betrayed. This conspiracy theory would become a cornerstone of his ideology and a powerful tool for mobilizing popular support. By blaming Germany's defeat on internal enemies, Hitler was able to unite a fractured nation under a common cause. His speeches, filled with vitriol and promises of revenge, resonated with a populace desperate for answers and eager for a return to greatness.